you ever wondered how to weave a baby wrap? Well, it's not that hard. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Rebecca from Robin's Nest Weaving, and I've made a lot of baby wraps. In fact, we have sold over $1 million worth of baby wraps out of this very studio here. I started my baby wearing journey back in 1995, long time ago, but I wasn't wearing baby wraps then. I didn't start wearing baby wraps until 2010 when I had my son, my baby. And so I was an avid baby wearer at that time. Oh my goodness, I bought and sold so many wraps. It's ridiculous. Anyways, that was prior to becoming a weaver. Now I have 3 little grandchildren that I baby wear quite often. So I know baby wraps from both a weaver's perspective and from a baby wearer's perspective. I feel like I know what I'm talking about in this regard. It's kind of my specialty. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about was regulations. So depending on which country you are in, there are different regulations that you're going to need to follow if you're selling them. I'm not going to address any of that here in this video today. Every country is different. I'm going to assume that you're going to be weaving a baby wrap either for yourself or a grandchild, something like that. Now, I'm going to assume that you're already a weaver, so we're not going to go over the basics of weaving. This is strictly how to weave a baby wrap if you're already a weaver. If you are making a baby wrap for someone who is not already an existing baby wearer, maybe she's a first-time mom, maybe she's just heard about baby wearing and is interested, maybe you've heard about baby wearing and you're interested, I would suggest for someone who's not already experienced that you make their wrap be approximately 4.7 meters. So we want to leave 10% for shrinkage. So that's going to mean you're going to weave about 5.2 meters. Plus, don't forget about loom waist. Now, the way I kind of cut back a little bit on my loom waist is where I tie on at the front. That yarn there, I use as fringe. So an ideal fringe, in my personal opinion, an ideal fringe is 25 centimeters. So I'll measure from the end. I just kind of ignore that there's a knot there. I'll take that out later. It'll just be a little bit longer, and I'll measure 25 centimeters and then I'll put my hem stitch in at that point. If you want to use a fringe, if not, just ignore that bit of advice. But I like to use fringes. It helps use up some of the loom waist. I end up with not very much loom waist whatsoever anymore. But you know your loom better than I do, so you do what works. Regarding length, I just wanted to mention that the 4.7 that I mentioned, 4.7 meters, is going to work for most people with most sized babies, for most carries. Okay. Now, you can use shorter wrap, 3.2 meters, anywhere from there up to, boy, I think the longest I wove was 5.8 meters. So that was a really long wrap. For most people, that much length is a little overwhelming. So, like I said, for first-time baby wearers or people who aren't already existing experienced baby wearers, that 4.7 is kind of a sweet spot, and that will work on every baby. The baby wearer who's going to be using the wrap is teeny tiny. She could go a little shorter, probably a base size of 4.4, 4.5, something like that. But again, I'm talking in meters here. Sorry, I can't translate to yards off the top of my head. Anyways, baby wraps tend to be sold by the meter. It's the standard in the industry of baby wearing, but I guess not necessarily with weaving. Okay, next let's talk about how wide should a baby wrap be. Well, of course, it's going to shrink when you take it off the loom. When I first started weaving, I was doing them 32 inches in the reed, but people tended to find it was a little tiny bit too wide. Every different type of yarn is going to shrink a little bit differently depending on which weft you use. So what I do now is I put 30 inches in the reed, and that's the way I go. So if I were using 8/2 cotton or 8/2 cotton hemp, I would go 24 ends per inch. And so that's 720 ends, and that's where you're going to start. And for a first time baby wrap, that would be fantastic. So, you're just going to want to pick some fun colors and even a fun draft, depending on what your loom can do. I mean, maybe you're going to do a twill. You can do plain weave. Plain weave can be not so much with cotton hemp, but it can be just a little bit slippery because there's nothing there to grip. And when you're doing baby wrap passes, you want a little bit of grip. But I think if you're using cotton or cotton hemp, that would be okay. There's so many variables. Now, with your draft, you're going to want to use something that doesn't have a lot of floats. If you don't want to do plain weave and you're doing a twill, that's great. If you choose something else, you don't want your floats to be, I'm going to say 3 or under is what you would shoot for. I will push it a little bit depending on the yarn I'm using, how thick that is. You just don't want them to be very long, your floats, right? Because little babies have teeny little toes and teeny little fingers, and you don't want them getting caught in those little floats. So ideally 3 and under. 4 and under is pretty good too. I wouldn't want a ton of floats that are 4, but if there's the odd one here and there, that's okay. Be sure to look at both sides of your draft too, because if you're a weaver, you know this. If you weave it and then you flip it over and the floats on the other side are completely different. So I like to use my weaving software. I use a CompuDobby loom, but even if you don't have a CompuDobby loom, you can still download free software. I know I use Fiberworks. Actually, I'll link that below. And if you use Fiberworks, it's free download. The only thing is you can't save and you can't print, and obviously you can't weave if you have the free copy. But you can look at both sides of the fabric and you can see how it looks. You can play with changing the colors. It's actually a lot of fun to play with. I used it for, I don't know, at least a solid year. I played with it before I had a loom that I could even use it with, maybe 2 years. It's really important that your fabric is structurally sound. It's going to be carrying a baby. I can't stress this enough. You want structurally sound fabric for little babies. It's got to be weight bearing, right? Now, most fabric that we weave is, but if you're doing overshot, don't, just don't do overshot for a baby wrap, okay? That's not a good idea. So let's talk a little bit about different fibers. The sky's the limit, really. In fact, believe it or not, I know this will come as a shock to many of you, but a lot of baby wearers and baby wrap weavers use silk, lots of silk, almost all silk, in fact. I personally don't use silk. I'm vegan, and so therefore I don't use silk. I will use wool in a pinch, but I will not use silk. But that's, again, off topic. I'll link to a friend of mine, Kate, who sells really great yarns, and she's a baby wrap weaver as well, so she knows what she's talking about, and I'll link her down below. So once you finish the baby wrap, another important factor is putting in what we call a middle marker. So you just fold your product in half, your wrap in half, and you make a little, some sort of middle marker. You can put a little tag there. You can embroider something on there. You can do a wrapped middle marker. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, I'm going to show you using this little piece of scrap that I have. So we're going to put it on the selvage, which baby wearers call the rail. So it would be long, but this is what I do. I fold it in half, and then I usually take a pin and I just pin it through. So I know that it's going to be equal on both sides, like equal to the middle. And I open it up and I take a little piece of the weft, and I typically fold it so that I have several layers. I like to have about 4 layers, but depends on the thickness of your weft. And then I go in. This one actually has, the selvage is double weave, so it's a little bit of a little loop there. I'm gonna pop it out. And I'm just gonna hide that in there. And now I'm going to just go in, come through this loop. I just want this to be nice and neat. Pull back a little bit, not too tight or else it'll pull these threads all apart. And you just want to keep going in and up through this loop. I think this is long enough. This is how I finish it. So you want to pull it to the back, because if you pull it to the front, this is going to come loose. So you pull it to the back. And you're just going to go back into that selvage there. And you're going to go into the selvage, in and out if you don't have a double weave selvage. Maybe I'll show you how to do that as well. The selvages, you want the selvages because people pull on these selvages. They tug and they pull and they jerk and they use their teeth on them. You want them to be pretty sturdy on a baby wrap. So there, that pulled it in nice and snug. And then I'm just going to cut it off. Now, your moms will appreciate it if you put one on both sides. So on this side and on the other selvage, which I didn't do because this is a piece of scrap, but that shows you how it looks. And it gives a really nice finish. Okay, I'm going to show you how to make a nice selvage too. I'll show you the draft that I use. Like I said, I like them to be extra sturdy. I used to put like 2 threads per heddle, but I don't do that anymore. I just do this really nice edge. I'll show you how to do that. However, I have a 16 shaft loom. So if you don't have a 16 shaft loom, you need 4 extra shafts just to do this selvage. So if that's not the case, then you know what, just do a plain weave selvage or the best you can. So this right here is how I do that double weave selvage. And you don't have to do anything fancy when you're weaving, just continue to weave, but you need to have an extra 4 shafts here for it. So if you've got an 8 shaft loom or 12 shaft loom, you're all right. But if you have an 8 shaft, you can do, lots with these other 4 shafts, and then you just do this on each selvage. I do 8 threads for a selvage on both sides. But I use this tool, but I do it in lift plan mode. So when I weave, it looks more like this, but I'm not tying up treadles because I don't have any treadles to tie up. Anyways, that's the selvages that I like to use. Again, I just used 8 on both sides. Anyways, that's it for today's video. If you got value out of this video, please give it a like. It really actually helps promote my videos and helps my channel to grow if you like, and if you leave a comment, I would really appreciate that. If you like the weaving content, please let me know. I've kind of been switching out of weaving content a little bit, but I mean, it's what I know. I am a weaver, so I have plenty of content I can upload about weaving if that's what you like. Anyways, shoot me a comment. If you love the kind of content I'm making, please subscribe. That would be great. I really appreciate you guys watching this. I really, really value you. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.